Hi, my name's Tony, and this is my neighbor Connor. We got to know each other. How long's it been now, Connor?
Not even. I mean, we've known each other. We've seen each other, but but we only really started interacting around last August.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the lawnmowers we met, eh?
yeah.
Amazing. And so he's been visiting me, and him and I. Well, I've been informing him of this stuff called the CO2 Gans water that I've been drinking. And he told me recently his mom had a serious illness, and I'll let Connor say a few things now.
Well, first of all, to whoever's listening to this, I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce all of this by thanking Tony for uh, introducing me to something that I've been looking for a long time. In 2013, my father was diagnosed with ALS, and initially, it was a very bad form of ALS, and I was looking desperately for methods to, if not cure him, then inhibit the proliferation of the illness. And I did happen upon something akin to what Tony has indulged me in, and unfortunately, my father passed away years before Tony and I became acquainted formally. However, when my mother uh, was hospitalized with kidney failure, the doctor said that had she gone a day later, her kidneys would have failed and she would have been on dialysis. But not only that, they discovered a series of what they described as masses, which encompassed her aorta, part of her intestinal tract, the exterior of it. It was shelled in, encased, they said. Several other organs, and there was in one of her lungs what they described as a galaxy-shaped cluster of a micronodule. Uh, um, and she has this. She was diagnosed with this thing called REF, but it's a form of fibrosis, which is especially rare in men. Apparently, it's only found in one out of every 200,000 men, which would make it even rarer for a woman, especially of her age, to suddenly have this occurrence. And so while she was in hospital, about a month ago, actually, it's been 4 weeks at this point. By that point in time, Tony and I had become good friends, and we went over the techniques. And I mean, first and foremost, I saw the way that I convinced my mom to try the CO2 cans was I implored Tony to attempt a different methodology to elicit the formula through fire rather than his preferred aquatic method. And one day, the coil that Tony was coating with flame melted off and basically branded his skin, and it welled up with pus. There was blood welts, coagulation, fresh blood, the works. It was gruesome. I felt really bad for Tony, but he calmly stood up, walked to his pantry, took out a mason jar of what he spent a long time cultivating and harvesting, and poured it on, just a dab, onto the wound, and immediately the pus disappeared. And I noticed that immediately. The pus was gone. And 2 days later, I came back and I asked Tony if I could see his hand again, and he acted like oh yeah, and he showed me his hand, and there was nothing. There was no scar, there was no blood, there were no scabs, no pus, and I already believed him at that point, but seeing this work in real time was the final. I mean, I had no questions at that point. And so when my mom was diagnosed with these things, the first thought that I had was to Tony, after when it came to treatments and solutions. And so I asked Tony if I may be so lucky to have one of the jars, and he was extraordinarily generous and kind, and gave me an entire mason jar of it, and I brought it over, and at first I put a little bit into her tea, and then I gave her a half glass of it with some tap water. And bear in mind, for anybody listening to this, everybody listening to this, what she was diagnosed with, she was given one of the most potent steroids you can possibly be prescribed with, prednisone, which she has to take at regular intervals, or her body will go into shock, and she can't just stop taking it. She has to actually wean off of it even now, because of the potency. However, despite the fact that these doctors, the prognosis for recovery, if there was going to be a recovery, was years, and they were only going to lower the dose after 6 weeks if they saw progress. She was lined up to have a biopsy. She was lined up to have, an invasive surgery. They were gonna cut her open. But on Monday of this week, she had a CT scan at Riverside, and they sent her the results the following morning, and there was nothing. The masses were gone everywhere, from her lungs to her intestines to her aorta. It was the word they used perpetually was unremarkable, and they saw no reason for a biopsy. So she's going to have one more CT scan to confirm, but she's already spoken with several nurses and doctors who say that she followed the correct procedures. She wasn't wearing any clothing that would have inhibited the scan, which means that something that she was expecting to suffer with her entire life, for the rest of her life, is gone. And I mean, I knew, I had a feeling it was going to work based on what I'd seen, but for it to occur so swiftly, Tony could tell you, the first thing I did when I saw him was give him a huge hug, because after losing, I was young when my father passed away, and I'm not so young now, but young enough where it still feels too soon. And so when those thoughts were racing through my head, not only out of desperation but assuredness, I asked Tony, and I mean, if anybody has any questions, we have copies of all the results from when she was in the hospital to this past Monday when she had the CT scan. Wow. It's an unprecedentedly swift recovery rate.
Can you get a copy of that CT scan?
I think so.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Before and after, that'd be really cool.
So I mean,
wow.
The only way anything changes is if the second CT scan says anything different, but I don't think it will. Okay.
So now they're going to want to know, how many days has she been drinking the Gans water?
She drank it. I gave it to her twice in the first week. Okay. And then nothing.
And that's it.
That's it.
Isn't that something else?
So, wow. I mean, and it's still basically full. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said a million times, I'm sort of sounding like broken record, sir, but I can't thank you enough.
Wow. I'm just so glad that I could help. So what is this? This is April the 16th, 2022. And this is my good neighbor friend, Connor. And his mom was deathly sick. So that was a form of tumor around her lungs?
Yeah, she had uh, basically a parasite in her lung, and then everything that was around her, a large part of her intestine, aorta, kidneys, etc., were tumorous masses that were, yeah.
Okay, good to know. Good. Okay, I'm glad I did the trick. Incredible. There's so many other testimonials on my Instagram account.